this notion that I think we kind of forget is that marriage was God's idea, not our idea.
Right. That's the first thing we've got to remember. And that's why it's a covenant.
Yeah.
Because if we leave it to our own idea, it becomes a document. Wow, that was good. Yeah.
Yeah. Good morning. Hello. I always say good morning because we do this in the morning, but not the morning for you. So we're excited. We are going to be doing 2 parts. Do you really want to be drinking your water?
Yep, it's all good.
We're going to be doing 2 parts on this topic, and the topic is marriage. So what we thought we would do today actually is start with a little bit of a funny story about marriage, which is, so in our dynamic, I am the calendar planner person, and this morning Michael came to me and he knew that this was actually very sweet. He knew that I wanted to run errands yesterday that I didn't get to run.
Did you catch that it was very sweet of me?
Yeah. And so this morning he said, well, after your call this morning, do you want to go run these errands? And I said, what's on the calendar? Well, I don't know. Tell me what's on the calendar. And so I get him to finally look at the calendar. He's like, what is it? We have a meeting that he invited our friend to.
He's a video editor.
Right after
some business.
Right after my phone call in the morning. He did not remember the meeting that he set up with the people that he set up the meeting with. So this is just part of real life marriage. This is how it goes.
It's real.
You know. And so that's why we have a calendar, because then I can direct it back to him and take the burden off myself. So.
And it works. It does work. I won't say that it doesn't work. It works.
Took me a while to get him to use
I come along kicking and screaming, like most husbands should learn to do. It's okay.
Well, and I used this description the other day that we can accept things as tools or rules. And if we accept them as a tool, then we're a little more open to what they can do for us rather than them, feeling like a burden. So.
They use us rather than we using them. Yes.
Kind of. Anyway, so we're moving on. We're moving on to today. We are going to be talking about, what makes marriage different. So it's kind of like the intro part. And if you're not married or you want to be single, that's great. That's fine. There's going to be some things in here I think that are important either way.
Yeah.
To know about. We are talking about relationships in general, and so some of this will apply, but specifically we're going into marriages today. So
right.
We're talking about, first of all, what makes marriage different. And so talking about how there's only 2 covenants that we see in Scripture, and that is our covenant relationship with God, and then our covenant relationship if we get married with our marriage partner. So, which leads us to notion that I think we kind of forget is that marriage was God's idea, not our idea.
Right. That's the first thing we've got to remember. And that's why it's a covenant.
Yeah.
Because if we leave it to our own idea, it becomes a document. Wow, that was good. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a covenant rather than a document. And I also heard, so it's this agreement to relational commitment, if we want to get into definition, but I just read something on it's also really a commitment to devotion.
Yeah.
But devotion is out of love.
Right.
Like you're saying, it's not out of contractual obligation, which we're going to kind of get into too.
Right.
Right.
Yeah. And I think it's important to understand when we think of marriage as a covenant relationship that, as Katie said, it's relational, and it being relational means that it's a heart thing. It comes from the heart, and that is essentially the big difference in relationships is when you start talking about marriage, because all other relationships we tend to navigate them with our head and with our thinking and with logic and things of that nature, but we can't do that in marriage. The relationship in marriage, although it may start by what you see, that's real. You get attracted to what you see, but the commitment that you make is a commitment that is from your heart.
So what is the, we get, obviously other relationships are relational, but the difference here with this marriage relationship, right, is where we start, or the expectation foundation is that we're operating as one.
Right.
That we're operating in unity. So it's not in sameness, but it's in unity with one another. And so we're going to talk about, kind of what it is and what it's not. And, it's reciprocal, it's relational, it's out of this consideration of the other, out of this unity piece, rather than I get to make all the decisions outside of considering this other person. So, and then it's decisional. So Michael kind of had what we're going to get into in a minute, but it is decisional. And by saying it's decisional, we're going to talk about what it's not actually primarily.
Yeah.
So
as we think about this decisional idea, it's why a man asks a woman to marry them. And it's why a woman says yes or no, because it's a decision that's made. And you don't have to be married. There's nothing that dictates you to must be married. That's not the idea. And so when you make this decision, my hope is that the decisions are made well, with good intentions, but we know the reality is that they're not oftentimes. Some couples get married because they feel like it's maybe the right thing to do, or it's the next step of the relationship, and they really don't know what to expect in it. And then it becomes hard, and then we fall back on the decision that we made, and now we try to undo it. We want out. We want divorce because this was a bad decision that was made. And I just think that as we peer into the understanding of why we make that decision, and understand that when the decision is made, that we need to explore and begin a process of answering the question why we made the decision. I know that was a big deal with us in the first 5 years of our marriage, because it was hard, but we knew we made a decision. And what did we found that decision on? What was the foundation of that decision that we made? And it allowed us to work through those hard times, even when we felt like not being together. So understanding the decisional part of that is critical, and then having a foundation and understanding why that decision was made.
So what it's not, and this is where we get caught up a lot, and we're going to have an example of our own situation to explore this, but what it's not primarily emotional, and it's not primarily transactional.
Right.
Those things are components of being married. You're gonna have emotions associated with it, and you're going to have, life happen where that's part of it being transactional, right? You pick up the kids, you go here, I'm gonna meet you there, blah, 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 those kinds of things. We need groceries. That's part of it. But when those things become foundational, that's where things can go wrong. So when Michael and I got married, I'm going to talk on my part and he's going to talk for his part.
Sure.
But when we got married, I think for me it was heavily weighted in the emotion category, right? And so again, it's not, you want to be, attracted to the person that you're getting married to for obvious reasons, but I think that it was more of an emotional decision, and those two words kind of contradict themselves, to be honest. So what happened was, instead of kind of doing a lot more work on does this make sense spiritually, and, are we compatible in these other ways? It was a lot based on feelings. And so when those romantic feelings wane, as they will, or when the challenges of life come, and now this person is acting in a way that doesn't feel right. Now what do we do? And so that can be a cause for, things to crumble. Yeah. Because we haven't set things on the foundation that we need to.
Right.
And so we come up against a hard spot there. And then Michael's going to talk about kind of what he ran into.
Yeah, with the transactional idea, I was looking for a partner. And I was older when Katie and I met, and we decided to get married. I knew that I did not want to waste a lot of, and I say waste on purpose, time with dating for years and deciding all this. Yeah, it was a transactional experience for me, in that I knew I didn't want to live alone. I didn't want to be alone by myself, but I knew I wanted a partner that brought something to the table, that met me in a place of ability for financing, ability for business, smart. Those things were important to me. And it's not to say that that they cannot be important in the decisional making process, but they cannot be primary to the decision. That's a bonus, if you will, because we had a talk. I remember this talk, and I might get emotional right now just because that was a turning point for our marriage when we were in Elgin. No, we were in Geneva. Yeah.
We were in that area.
Yeah. And we were out for lunch, sitting out on the patio, and we were having a hard time. And she asked me, how did I see our relationship? And when I told her that it was a business decision that I made, oh man, the hurt of that response for her impacted me in a way that I will never forget. And so it was in that moment that days later I had to really spend some time with God reconciling why I was married to Katie, and how that looked for her to be emotionally invested in our relationship, and me only being transactionally invested in our relationship. It gave a great explanation of why we were having a tug of war. I can't say virtually, because it was literally sometimes, but there was a struggle and there was a tension there, because we were looking at this marriage very different than the other was, and we weren't in unity with one another, because we can both have a great emotional experience in this relationship of marriage, and we can also have a great business relationship in this marriage. And I think that once we re-solidified the foundation of what the marriage was going to be built on, all the other things began to come more simply and more easily with effort and work that we put behind it.
Yeah. So it was the notion of unity and seeking the kingdom, and those things being a part rather than the focus of, and bringing it back to what we knew was going to be able to withstand no matter what happened, with our emotions or circumstances or, ministry or whatever, anything like that, because those things were not the things that were going to sustain us. So this is what we want to bring you guys today for part one of this topic on marriage, and we're excited to get back to you with part two.
And this is my ask. If this is blessing you, let us know in the chat. Send it to somebody, share it. And if you feel led to help us continue the ministry that we're doing, feel free to go to the website, support us financially, support us in any other way that you see fit to benefit others, because that's what we want to do. We do this for the benefit of others and the glory of God. So thank you for your time today, and we will see you in part two.